On this episode of the Welcome Back podcast, I spoke with Nate Wind, owner of Wind Media Co., a video production company located in South Portland, Maine. He has a passion for telling stories and really wants to be of good service to not just his clients, but his community. And he's a great spirited guy. I had a good time talking to him. We laughed, we cried, we ran through all the emotions. And in the end, it all came down to telling stories. Enjoy. Welcome back to the podcast. On this episode, I have a friend of mine, Nate Wind of Wind Media Co. Is it Wind Media Company or Co? What do you like?
I usually go by Wind Media Co. I'm not too picky though.
Okay. I love it. So tell viewers, anybody who might be watching this, who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Yeah. So my name's Nate, and I run a company called Wind Media Co. And we are a video production and photography company. I'm currently based in Portland, Maine, although I started this company down in New York City about 10 years ago. So yeah, I'm a videographer and photographer in Portland, Maine.
Are you from Brooklyn?
No, I'm actually originally from Rochester, New York, up over like Western New York, more toward Buffalo.
Yeah. Okay,
So yeah,
awesome.
I grew up there and then moved to New York City, like literally a month after college.
What
So
year are we talking?
20 summer of 2015.
2015, the
So
summer of 2015. I remember it well. I was drinking a lot in the summer of
we're
2015, so it wasn't
weren't we
really
all?
that good. No, that's awesome, man. So you're in
Yeah,
Brooklyn. This is where the video thing starts coming to life. What the
yeah.
hell sparked that? What were you doing? And then started messing around with cameras.
So I actually have always kind of been messing around with cameras. I started when I was like 14 or 15, just playing with my dad's old video camera. And it was just kind of for fun. Me and my friends would just make like stupid little videos. I took one class in high school about it. And then I actually went to college for music production. And like a semester and a half in, it was taking all the fun out of music for me. So transferred over to a mass communication degree, which and had like video production classes. And I just took every single one my college offered. So I kind of put together like a video major for myself. And then right after college, I moved back with my parents for like 3 weeks, just long enough to find a sublet in Brooklyn, and then moved down to the city and was working as a production assistant on commercial shoots. So I worked on one of, remember when McDonald's started doing like all day breakfast?
I remember it well.
Yeah. So one of the first campaigns of that, I was on one of those commercial shoots. I was the guy who scrubbed bacon trays for like 16 hours a day.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, I want to be a
So
PA on this video shoot. Can I scrub some bacon?
that was pretty much it.
What the hell?
I still hate doing dishes to this day. But yeah, so it was like a 5-day shoot. But yeah, so we did that, worked with some other like big brands and stuff like that, just as a production assistant. And essentially what I would do is I would work, just like bust my ass for like 5 days. And then I'd have like a week or two off, and I would spend all the money I just made, like, experimenting and doing things like that, and just kind of trying to pick up freelance clients on the side. And then I'd go do another PA gig to survive the next couple weeks. And that's how I kind of lived the first several months in New York City. So I was originally looking for like a company job, but it was really hard to get hired with like no other experience, like no other like, resume experience. And so just kind of by necessity, I started picking up freelance gigs, and then that just kind of snowballed into this company.
So I wanna ask you two separate things, but I'm gonna forget them. So I'm gonna ask you at the same time, and then we'll try to remind each other what the second question was.
We can
Okay.
do it.
All right. So for the uninitiated, I want to kind of dive into what a PA is and
Yeah.
does, and like what that was like coming straight out of school. So, and then also you have some schooling, right? So officially you're a video guy or a film guy, right?
I'm technically trained. Yeah.
Technically trained. We say classically trained
There you
where
go.
I'm from. Um, and so I want to talk a little bit about your experience with having like schooling, traditional like learning for this exact thing that you want to do on your resume, and how that worked out for you as far as like going and applying for jobs. Because I have my own experience, I just kind of want to like contrast it with what yours was. So
Yeah.
you choose which you choose your own destiny here
Okay.
on which path you want to go down. PA, explain. I want to like dive into what that was like, and then the coming out with the schooling, and
Yeah.
was that a net benefit?
Yeah, let's chat about the PA thing first because I feel like we're going to go off on some tangents on the schooling thing. Um, so basically, a PA, it stands for production assistant. You are basically the lowest person on the set in terms of hierarchy. Like if anything, like I did Starbucks runs to go get coffee for the producers and directors and other cast and crew. I became real good friends with the Starbucks employees down the street over at Astor Place. Um, and then on top of that, I also would, like I said, if it was a food commercial, I'd scrub the dishes. Um, I would be in charge of like picking up catering after everyone was done eating, which also helped me survive a little bit in Brooklyn because like I would always volunteer to pick up breakfast, and I would bring a little backpack with myself or with me full of like Ziploc bags, and I would take um, all the bagels that we were supposed to just throw out. I would just take them and throw them in my backpack, and that would be like, and then throw them in the freezer when I got home, and that would be breakfast, lunch, and dinner
Oh,
for several
nice.
days. Um, but yeah, so basically, you're just doing all kind of the grunt work on a big set, and these sets were like probably anywhere between like 25 and 50 people, so they were like fairly
So
large
that's like a
productions.
real that's a real shoot, you know. And so
Yeah,
like what's interesting is I fall into this category, but there's a lot of videographers who have never experienced like a real shoot, you know, where it's
yeah,
like, oh, there's grip, and there's, first AC, AC2, there's all sorts of shit. People don't even know what the hell they're doing. They're just
yeah.
trying to look busy and not get yelled at by the director. So I've never had to experience that because I've never done that. I would love to experience it, but I never had that experience. So now that you are doing your own thing, you run your own business, how does having that experience and coming up kind of through the rank and file a little bit and feeling what it's like in that position, how do you apply that to, your day to day of running your own operation?
Honestly, it really informed. It's informed one how I set up my sets because I've kind of gone between throughout my career being more of like a video producer, being a cam op, or just being like an all encompassing like solo show, like one man band videographer kind of situation. So it allowed me to kind of see and learn what everyone did. So I have a better understanding. So now I know when like I need to make a hire or something like that, I have that bank of knowledge of like, okay, what's the if I only have the budget to hire like two people, what are the positions I really want to make sure are concentrated on? So that really helped just seeing kind of like what a first AC does, or or what even like an assistant producer did versus like or an associate producer versus like producer, head producer, or lead producer. Um, so it definitely has helped me in terms of being able to kind of just structure it in my own mind. Um, and then also, what it really, really helped with was there were certain people that I still remember to this day that treated me incredibly, and there were certain people that treated me like I was like scum. And so I on like on those sets, I decided that I would never like I would always say thank you a million times to PAs. I would always like treat PAs well because I really know what it's like to be that. And I remember the first moment, it was maybe 3 or 4 years later, I was a camera operator doing a shoot of like a presentation at the YouTube studios over in above Chelsea Market, and it was the first shoot that I was had a PA on, but I wasn't the PA, and I was so excited, and I cannot tell you how many times I said thank you to that PA because like you definitely get you get the blame for a lot of things, and you also have to just do a lot of grunt work. You're the first one there, last one to leave, and you're the one hauling all this stuff. You're the one, um, running around the city trying to make things happen. And it's a very thankless job. So that's why I really try when I do have a PA on set to let them know that they're appreciated.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it kind of, it's like the CEO of a company who started at the bottom,
Yeah,
right? You have experienced what it's like to get stepped on in that low rung position, and then just fighting through it and just trying to stay positive and respectful, and then moving on to the next thing. So
yeah.
typically, what have you seen? What is the path for PAs usually after they've run run the gambit, the gauntlet of being a PA for long enough where somebody will give them a shot to do something else? Is it just based on interest? Like, hey, I'm more interested in actually getting behind the camera. I'm more interested in directing. I'm more interested in doing something else.
Yeah. So what happens? And I was only a PA for maybe 6 months or so before my freelance stuff started taking off more. And so I ended up not going this route, but I knew other PAs who had been doing it for a couple of years who were kind of farther along than I was. Um, and what most of them did is you tend to run into a lot of the same crew members shoot after shoot, even if it's different projects and stuff like that, because certain producers just like working with certain crew, and same with directors and things like that. So, so if you start to uh, show interest in a certain avenue that you want to go, then you tend to just kind of start talking to those people, whether it's during lunch or something like that, or even just like after the shoot, after the fact. So maybe you want to be a DP. So then you start talking to maybe the assistant camera operator or the camera operators, or maybe the DP is just really cool and like talks to everyone, and you just start chatting with them, and then you kind of slowly just pick up by being around it, pick up what they're doing and the language and all of that, and then hopefully down the line, you either get a shot being like their direct assistant for the day, or they hear of some maybe smaller shoot that's maybe a 5-person crew that they're too expensive for or something like that. But they're like, hey, I got a new guy who really like knows his stuff. He's into it, X, Y, and Z. And then maybe you get your shot there. And then when you prove yourself there, maybe you move up to a 10-person crew and so on and so forth.
Yeah. It's just the proving grounds, right? Just
Exactly.
show that you are interested and you can do what you're freaking told and you're willing to learn and you're
Yeah.
getting better. It's
I mean, it's literally attitude is
yeah.
everything, especially at the beginning.
Yeah. Attitude is everything. I think that was Paul Abdul's song back in the day. Attitude is every. I don't know. Maybe I could be mixing that up. So now let's go the other thing that we had brought up before, which
Yeah.
was the schooling thing. So you start off with music, right? Correct me
Hmm.
if I'm off on any of this. But you start off with music. You start for whatever reason you start doing video or film instead. You get
Hmm.
done with school with that kind of on your resume, and then you go to get a job and you're saying, hey, look at me, I went to school. What is the reaction from most crews like early on? Are they like, oh, that's cool, we really respect that? Or is it more like only nerds go to school for this shit? What are you, dumb? Because I got a lot
Um,
of that. I got a
no,
lot of that.
it was, did you, so you didn't go to school for it, right?
I went to school for recording arts, so audio engineering, but
Okay, gotcha.
I didn't go for film. And I went to Full Sail, which is, you
Okay,
know,
in Florida,
it's
right?
cool. Yeah, cool. Great experience. Met a lot of great people. Super duper overpriced. And also, um, they're just churning out 300 engineers a month.
Is that so? Is that an associate's degree technically, or is it just like a technical school? Or
It's an associate of science degree, and you get it in 1 year
okay.
because
Oh wow.
you're doing an accelerated program. So
Okay.
you're doing labs in the morning, or so you're in the studio in the morning learning stuff, and then you're doing theory, actual instructional classes throughout the
Gotcha.
day. So I'd have like stuff at 1 in the morning. I'd be in the studio at like 1 in the morning for a couple
Man.
hours, and then I would have to get up at like 8 in the morning to go to like theory, and then I would like go switch classes and go do a different class and then do a lab at night. So it was like it was crazy, and it was
Wow.
cool. It was a lot of fun, but I think
Hmm.
for the price point, it's just so much fucking money, so much money.
Really?
So when I was going for jobs, and obviously I was not going for film jobs, I was going for like studio jobs.
Yeah.
I would get one of two reactions. Either they also went to Full Sail and you get that alumni vibe, like, hell yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I went to Full Sail in 1993. Like, that's cool, man. And then, or you would get the other one, which is, oh, you went to Full Sail? Like, how does it feel having all that debt? Like that was kind
Gotcha.
of the
Okay.
attitude. Yeah.
Like, how's
So,
it feel making a mistake?
yeah. Regretting that or what?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind
Interesting.
of the vibe that I was getting out in the
Okay.
recording world,
Gotcha.
which was kind of
Interesting.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I feel like that world's similar, but also like super different. Did you ever end up working in recording or
Yeah, so I had my
like
own
audio?
studio for a little bit.
Oh,
Nothing
nice.
major, nothing major records. No, I'm just kidding. That wasn't the name. But that would have been a dope name. Nothing major records.
Just a minor label.
Yeah, just some minor acts. Nothing, nothing to write home about. Yeah, small like you know at home operation. Then also I rented a space out for a while, and then
Nice.
and so the day I graduated, I got a call from a studio in Philly, and it was these two producers. Their names are evading me, but
Mhm.
they were huge platinum producers for like everybody from like Michael Jackson to Usher to Kanye to
Wow.
like all the uh like Jay-Z and like Rockefeller artists. It was all hip
Yeah.
hop R&B. And at
Okay.
that time in my life too, that's all I listened to. I was a rapper. I was very involved in the community, we'll say.
Yeah.
In all aspects, negative and positive stereotypes. Yeah. But
You were living the life.
I was living the life. Cheeseburgers and weed. I mean, that could have been the name of that could have been the name of the album.
That
But that was a long time ago, folks. But I'm losing it. I'm losing my train of thought there. Oh yeah, so they called the day I graduated and offered an internship, which was
Mhm.
perfect. So I interned there for a few months, but it was unpaid, and
Gotcha.
driving from here to Philly is like an hour and a half.
Yeah. Were you
And
in the Poconos at the time?
in the Poconos at the time,
Okay.
yeah, which was the first mistake. Coming back to the Poconos, that was like not good for that particular career path that I was trying to pursue.
Yeah. Not unless you're already like someone people are seeking out and they'll drive out to the Poconos to see
Exactly.
you.
Yeah. There's lots of I want to be a singer, I want to be a rapper. People in the Poconos, they're all
Yeah.
broke. None of them have any money. They have 10 grand to flash in the video, and they have no grand to spend on recording. So it just wasn't working out. But the internship was
Gotcha.
cool, but it was unpaid, so I could only do it for a very limited amount of time before I literally went broke. And then I had to stop going, which was unfortunate or fortunate. I guess it depends how you look at it.
Yeah.
You know, I went.
It
It
depends
just led
on
me down a certain path, but it is what it is. So,
yeah.
yeah, but that was like the extent of it. And then I did a lot of live recording, a
Okay.
lot of live engineering for like concerts and
Nice.
just different clubs and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. A lot of like heavy metal clubs
Hell yeah.
while
So you
I'm rapping
yeah, right.
and involved in that life. Yeah.
You would have been more that would have been more in I probably would have been in the crowd.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff, the kind of shows I was going to.
Yeah. I remember I was working at a bar that's not far from here, and they did just like all heavy metal shows. And it was a
Okay.
little biker bar. And it was a biker bar. And I
Hell
remember
yeah.
there was one guy, I'm not going to name him. I'm sure he's not going to see this, but just in case he does, he pulled a gun out on me. So I don't want to identify the suspect at this point in time. I'd rather
Man.
not get the gun pulled back out on me. But it was just kind of funny because I'm Jewish and I have a Star of David on my right hand.
Uh-huh.
And somebody had told me when I started working there, owner was cool with me, everybody was cool with me, but they
Yeah.
were like, "Hey, the tattoo on your hand, just there are some people who frequent this bar that they probably will not be cool with you being Jewish and like just being there and whatever." So I was like, "What?" Like I've never experienced any kind of
Man.
like hatred or like anything like that in any kind of like real sense
Yeah.
before. So I remember I would like and it was usually dark in there, but like I would put my hand in my pocket. I would wear like
Should have
gloves,
got
like when
some
I'm
like
setting
leather
the
gloves
wires
or
up.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some real fingerless, like, the
Right.
cut off gloves and shit. Just like
Yeah.
real cool mesh in the back.
Man.
Very, very 80s. But so I would like kind of hide it a little bit.
Mhm.
And I remember this guy I was standing at the bar and I was getting a drink, and this guy who had later pulled a gun out on me, I don't think he knew I was Jewish, but I was a little worried as the conversation developed with him that this would become an issue. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I remember
Uh-huh.
like digging my hand deep into my pocket, like, all right, let's not cause any kind of issues here. And he was telling me about his motorcycle and how cool it was, and I agreed that it was super cool. And for whatever reason, he goes, yeah, dude, like you don't even know, man. Like I look down, I've been pointing my gun at you for the last 5 minutes, and I'm like, okay, where is this like what happened in this conversation that now I have a
What did
gun
I
pulled on me?
say?
Yeah. So I'm like, well, hopefully you put your gun away, because I don't know, why you pulled your gun out on me. But that was the kind of bars that I would like do audio in.
Got okay. I stand corrected. I wouldn't be at those bars. That's a little too tough for me.
For the normal patron, it was fine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that was just like one time out of many times being there. I never
Yeah.
had any issues. And I don't even think that was an issue. I think that was more of a power play. Like, hey,
Yeah.
dude, you know, my name is what it is because I'll shoot you right here in the bar.
Yeah.
And I'm just like a fucking audio guy. I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to pretend I'm Catholic.
He,
I don't, you
he
know,
had he had some other things going on if he's trying to flex on the audio guy at a biker bar.
come on, man.
There's plenty of other people to flex on there.
Yeah, yeah. Who knows
Man,
where that guy is now? He's
that's
either in
yeah.
jail. He could be anywhere now.
Well,
And I wish him the best. God bless him. He didn't shoot
let's
me, and I appreciate him for that.
well, let's
You know?
let's hope he I don't know, figured out whatever he was going through.
Yeah. So as a videographer, how many
Yeah.
times do you get a gun pulled out on you?
So far 0, and I'm really trying to
That's
keep it
good.
that way.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah, I got
I
a good record there.
Yeah.
So
So, and you're in Maine, right? So, I guess
yeah,
depending on what town in Maine, um, could be a bad part of the neighborhood. Not really, right?
Maine is, especially coming from I mean, I've lived in like every area of New York State. Um, and coming to Maine, it's like the bad part of town here, anywhere, is still like the safest part of town in any other place I've ever lived.
Yeah, yeah.
it's it's very like, because it's a lot of small little towns, everyone kind of knows each other.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of like that almost like self-policing thing, because everyone knows each other, so everyone's kind of got a reputation to like
Yeah.
keep, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
I feel
yeah,
like that's
so
how it was growing up. I'm 41, so I grew up in like the 80s and
okay.
90s is really when I
Yeah.
grew up. I was like a kid. And
Yeah.
that was we were living in Staten Island, and we just lived in like a suburban neighborhood. Everybody knew your parents.
Yeah.
So I'd be like,
You
I'm
know,
going to tell your dad. And then he's
yeah.
going to beat the shit out of you. It's like, do you really fucking need that in your life? Like, all right, I'll put the matches down. We don't
Yeah,
need to burn
right.
down the
Okay.
neighborhood today.
I'll just
Um,
go get a cheeseburger
yeah,
instead
yeah.
and call it a night.
Yeah. So I feel like Maine, like maybe where
Yeah.
you're living is like 1992, New York. It's just time traveling.
Yeah,
It's
right.
still peaceful and
It's
nice.
yeah, I mean, it's great. It's great. And I mean, that was part of the reason that like I moved here from New York, because like I lived in New York City, like I said, for like 5.5 years, and then pandemic hit. We can get into that if you want, but basically, long story short, forced me to move out to up near like Poughkeepsie, just for like being able to afford rent. Um, and then at that point, I was working so much in the city again that I was like, I either got to move back to the city or move further away from the city, because like I was spending a good chunk of my day rate every day, like that I was working down there, just to like drive down, park, take trains, things like that. And ultimately, we decided to move farther from the city.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Who's we? Is that you and your spouse?
uh, yeah, my girlfriend and
Your
I.
girlfriend?
But
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
And you brought the cats with you? You got three
No,
cats?
no cats, no
No
dogs.
cats. Okay.
Just two of us.
No kiddos. Okay. So yeah, what happened?
Yeah,
What was the thing with COVID that kind of, boosted you guys out of the city and up
yeah.
towards where you're at now?
So at the time, so when I was in New
Boosted. No,
York,
no pun intended with the boosted. I didn't mean to do that.
what do you mean boosted?
COVID boosters. I don't
Oh,
know. I don't know. It just came to me.
that was a good play on words.
It wasn't. I'm sorry. I don't mean.
So
I'm not going to interrupt anymore. One
no, you're
last
good.
interruption. I'm not going to interrupt anymore. Go
You're
ahead.
good.
Yeah. So what
So
happened?
yeah, basically, so I when I originally moved down to New York City, I was living in Brooklyn and sublet. Then I ended up moving out to Astoria, Queens. That's where I lived for like the majority of my time in New York. Um, and then the last like year and a half, that was when my girlfriend and I like moved in together, and we moved to a 2 bedroom in like the Bushwick Bed-Stuy like border. And so we were living there, paying more than paying New York City prices for rent. And
Yep. And
so
and one interjection. Bed-Stuy,
yeah,
r- beautiful and nonviolent neighborhood, or is Bed-Stuy different these
uh,
days?
Bed-Stuy is very block by block.
Yeah.
It depends. So our block was really like cool. 2 blocks down, like you'd get jumped.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was like very like you just kind of had to
I'd
like
get jumped.
know. Well, you wouldn't, but I would.
I would. No, I would get. I would get jumped. I wouldn't get jumped because I'd
um,
be running.
yeah,
Like,
actually, there
ah.
was there was one time some dude he ran up to us. We were walking home from the train like 8 o'clock at night. We're coming home from a date or whatever, and he runs up to us with like a bunch of like like shelf stable food in his arms, like think like top ramen cans, things like that.
Good
And he just
stuff.
goes, buy me something. And I was like, what? And he just like blocked our way where we were walking. And he goes, give me some money. And I was like, I don't carry cash. he
Yeah.
goes,
Okay.
he goes, then buy me something. And I was like, no. And so he
No,
goes, go in that
sir.
store and buy me something. And I just kind of looked at him and I was like, no.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then he just like blocked our way. So we just turned around and had to walk like 3 blocks down around to get to our place. He like didn't follow us or anything. But what I loved about New York though is like out of the corner of my eye, I knew we weren't alone. There were like 3 other couples standing like on the side of the street, like watching what was going to happen, like just in case anything weird happened. They were like there ready to like help,
They were gonna
which
run. Oh, they were gonna help. Yeah.
they were going to help. Yeah, I think. I don't
That's
know.
what
We
you
never
think.
got that far,
They're
luckily.
like,
But
babe, listen,
like
if these
they
people
like
get robbed, just fucking run. I'm not trying to fight this
you
guy.
didn't see
Yeah.
it. But yeah, so I mean it turned out fine. But yeah, so that neighborhood, that was still when we were kind of like learning what blocks to go down and what ones not to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was block by block.
Yeah. So COVID
But a
hits.
beautiful
Yeah.
neighborhood, a lot of amazing like my neighbors that I met were like so cool. Like there was this huge family down the street that every Saturday night they had a giant dance party like in their front and backyard till like 3 a.m. just playing like I don't know, it
Yeah.
was fun.
Yeah. They're
But
Puerto Rican. They're definitely Puerto Rican.
actually I think they were.
Yeah. 100%. No, I'm from New
But
York,
yeah,
man. I know.
and it was literally like I swear every person that they've ever met was there. It was
That's awesome.
such a bit. It was so cool. It was just
Yeah.
fun to watch.
That's cool.
And they were always super super nice. Like
Yeah.
we'd go by and say hey and all that. But anyway, so then COVID hits. Our neighborhood got hit really really hard. Like and at that time like we finally had found like a park to go hang out at because everything inside was shut down. And then they locked all the parks
Yeah.
for some reason.
Hey, don't be outdoors with your loved ones. Are you
It's
out of your
like, I'm
mind?
just trying to sit in like the outfield of a softball field. Like,
Look, man, they were arresting surfers out,
I know.
surfing alone, riding the
Yeah.
waves, hanging 10, and then you come over with your policies and your regulations. It's like, hey, nobody was in danger until 7 of you came over here to tell me I can't be on the freaking beach,
Yeah, I
alone.
know. Yeah,
So it
I
was
mean,
crazy times, dude.
yeah,
So
that was the
freaking
thing.
nuts.
Is my thing was like if we were, I totally understood not being inside together, like because we're trying to, but like outside's the one place we can be.
Yeah, yeah.
you
Be
know.
out in the
But
sun, get some vitamin D, some fresh air.
exactly. Yeah.
Probably good for you. But we'll say it was a confusing time. I
It
think
was.
everybody
I
can
mean,
agree that it was a confusing time. But how did this
yeah.
affect work and why
So
you guys decided to finally leave?
yeah, so it was like March, whatever day it was, March 16th or whatever, the day that like everything officially like shut down.
Mhm.
Um, I was booked out for like probably a couple months. And that day, every single client called me like, "Hey, we're gonna postpone. We're gonna postpone. We're gonna postpone."
Yeah.
And then,
Call you in 2 weeks. Like, all right, no
exactly,
problem.
because everyone was saying, 2 to 4
two
weeks,
we-
we'll be good to go.
2 weeks flatten the curve. Yeah, two
And
years
like,
later, like
yeah. And meanwhile, I got COVID twice last winter and like
yeah.
knocked me out.
Yeah.
So it's like we're still not out of it. It's better, but we're not out of it.
Yeah.
And it's yeah. But anyway, so then like 2 months later, I was keeping in touch with them, and like most of them were like, "Yeah, the ship has kind of sailed on that video. Like we don't need it anymore."
Yeah. Yeah.
So so work basically just dried up. I got a music video here and there. Uh, because I was working with like a bunch of Broadway performers and stuff, and this one dude Marcus that he's awesome. Like he hired me for a couple different music videos and a couple different projects that he did. He had this idea. He's like, I've been going crazy in my house. Like I want to film a video because he wrote a song about it. And so it was me, this choreographer, who was a friend of his, and him. And we shot a whole music video in one room that was like all the windows open. And
Oh shit.
but anyway, so that
Yeah.
was like my only project during that time, other than a couple editing things. And so basically, I was just trying to hold on with my savings. And eventually, it was basically like August, September, October of that year. And I'm like, I'm starting to run out of savings. And at this point, like, I'm going to not be able to pay rent in a few months if I stay here. So we made the tough decision to just basically, we just like told our landlord, sorry, we're out. And like, we can't pay anything anymore. We paid a penalty to break the lease, and we ended up basically living between our parents' houses and some friends, just like driving around for like 3 or 4 weeks until we found a place up near Poughkeepsie. Um, and then that rent was like half what we were paying. So basically, it was just kind of a necessity. We were running out of savings, and so we moved up there.
Was there like job opportunities up there for either of you? So it made sense to go up there, or just closer to family and cheaper?
Um, Honestly, it was the cheapest we could get while still being close enough to the city for when things did start opening back up that we still could go down and work
And
when we
there
needed
any
to.
minute that could happen at any minute now at that
It,
point. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like
Well, and that was the thing in October of 2020. We were like, I don't know, we're heading into a winter, so things could get better. It could get worse. I don't
yeah.
know, but we didn't really have that many other like
Yeah.
options at that point.
So
So
then when do you go to Maine now? How long are you in
so
Poughkeepsie before you go over to Maine?
so we're only in Poughkeepsie for about a year. And then basically we were at that point, like I said, we were deciding whether to move back down to the city or move farther away. Because career wise, it just didn't make sense to live at that point in Poughkeepsie and like continue commuting.
Yeah.
So for our anniversary that year in August, a bunch of our friends were like, "Have you guys ever been to Portland, Maine? Like, we think you guys would like it. Like, it just seems like your vibe." And neither of us had. And so for our anniversary, we just took a weekend trip, and we loved it so much that when we were eating lunch the day we were supposed to leave, I was like under the table on hotels.com trying to find any like hotel that was still open to like stay for another day. We ended up staying in like the Econo Lodge up in Freeport, which is like 20 minutes north. I was like, good
Nice.
enough.
Yeah, close enough. Yeah.
And then and we just it just felt right, and so we decided on December 1st of that year when our lease was up, just to be like, let's just move there. So we
Yeah.
had never been here before. Came here in August of 2021, and then by December we were moved in.
Incredible. I've been to
Yeah.
Portland, Maine one time when I was doing music. I actually went up there for a small show, and I remember it was winter and it had snowed here in the Poconos, and it was like a blizzard. It was a lot of snow, and then we drove up to Portland, and I mean, there was real snow that had
Yeah.
just hit Portland. Like it was a legit blizzard. And I remember seeing people, I was so confused at first. I didn't know what the hell I was looking at, but I could see the little puffy balls on the top of people's hats as they walked down the sidewalks. And I realized that they had just carved like the sidewalks out and it was 6 feet or whatever of snow on
That's
both sides.
amazing.
And I was just like, what the hell is going on up here? And
Yeah.
the guy who had booked us for the show up there was just like, yeah, you literally just missed like one of the biggest snowstorms I've ever seen in my life. And it was just like, just
What
incredible amounts of snow.
what year was that?
Oh boy.
Do you know?
Let's
Because I
see.
know there was a big blizzard of '98 that everyone talks about here that I was not here
It
for.
wasn't
But
98.
okay,
I was still in school in 98. So this
okay,
was probably like, I don't know, early 2010,
gotcha.
somewhere
Okay,
around
yeah,
there. Yeah.
yeah.
If I'm still doing music, I kind of stopped in 2014. That was like the last time I recorded anything.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
so it definitely would have been a couple years before that. But very nice though. Everybody was
Yeah.
super sweet up there. I could see how you guys would, kind of grow to love it, upon visiting it. Now you've been up there for how long?
So this past December was 3 years. So
Okay,
just over
so
3 years.
3 years. Still love it,
Yep.
or
Still love it.
loving to hate
Love
it?
it.
You
Honestly,
love it?
love it more now than I did.
Yeah. I was
It's
just
it's
talking. I was just talking to somebody about this, that I hate that I go and visit somewhere and I fall in love with it. And
yeah.
then when you're there long enough, sometimes, apparently not for you guys in Portland, but sometimes you start feeling like, oh, I live here now. Oh, this is just like where I'm from. It's just like a different temperature or whatever. It's like
Yep.
I still got to do life things, which
And
sucks, you know?
well, that's the thing is when you're traveling for like vacation, like of course you're like, oh, I could do this every day because you're on vacation.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
But it's like, especially like a place like Portland. And I know the Poconos is probably kind of the same way in terms of like you have like kind of a tourist season, and
Mhm.
then outside of the tourist season, it's a lot slower. Is that kind of
Yes.
right? I've
Yep.
only been to the Poconos. I've driven through a bunch, but I've only stayed there once. It
It's
was
probably
for
very similar as far as I guess certain parts would be very similar to what I experienced in Portland, but it's just a lot of transplants from the city. So a lot of people from New
got it.
York, Jersey, Philly, the next stop, like we get out of the city. If they go
They
west, the next stop is always the Poconos, and
they
so
get
it's
that
just
mountain money and then they move out there.
yeah, exactly. And they're like just clogging up the roads. Let me tell you
Got it.
something. They're clogging up the roads and we don't like it. I'm from New York, so I'm one of these stupid fucking people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's probably but I like it. It's a lot slower than what it was like living in Brooklyn and Staten
Oh,
Island.
I bet.
And when I was younger, I used to always think that I wanted to stay in the city and live in the city. And then I had a kid, but way before we had the kid, like I just, I don't know, man. I kind of grew to love it. There's a lot about the Poconos that I do not like,
Yeah.
mainly the winter. I just not
That's
big
fair.
on shoveling snow anymore. But speed wise, I kind of like it. It's
Yeah.
not too fast, not too slow.
That makes
Depends what
sense.
roads you go on, I guess. But
Yeah. And you still
um,
kind of there have that New York City energy a little bit because it's a lot of transplants.
yeah,
So
yeah, we have a lot of indoor water parks.
interesting.
I don't know. It used to be a lot of ski resorts,
Okay.
right?
That makes
It's
sense.
it's been getting warm during the winters the past couple of years. So
Got
we
it.
still have a couple
Okay.
of resorts that are good every year. They do very well.
Yeah.
But in the summers now, and even in the winters, I guess a lot of indoor water parks and warehouses. We're like the
Gotcha.
warehouse fucking capital. I think Allentown, which is not far from me,
Yeah.
is like the warehouse capital of the country or something like that. I think it has
Really
like the most built or newly built warehouses in the entire country.
interesting.
It's just like a hub of distribution. It's not
That's
a hub
wild.
of
Yeah.
anything else.
I mean, I've been through. It's highways. It's a lot of highways and a lot of through traffic there.
Yeah.
But
Well, you figure like you're kind of intersecting the like a corridor between Philly and New York and like I guess Pittsburgh. I hate to say Pittsburgh.
yeah,
Have you ever been to Pittsburgh? What a
I have not
shithole.
actually.
No, I'm just
I've heard there's kind of a rivalry between like the Philly area and the Pittsburgh area,
it has nothing to
and
do with
they're kind
Brian.
of it sounds like they're kind of pissed off that they're part of the same state.
Yeah, well, it is a long state, all right? It takes like
Yeah,
6 hours to get from one end to the other.
yeah.
And
I mean,
I have no tribe like affiliation. I don't like the Eagles. I'm not like a Philly guy. I do
gotcha.
love Philly, and my wife and I spent a lot of time in Philly,
Yeah,
especially
Philly's
before we had
great.
the kid. Loved it. It's not exactly the same as it was when we were spending time there. It's a little shisty these days until
Okay.
they clean it up. A lot of fentanyl, a lot of
Gotcha.
crime. I mean, there was
Yeah.
always crime, but it seems
Yeah.
to be spreading, right? So,
Got it.
but Pittsburgh, I've only been there like twice, and it's just like kind of grimy. I don't know. I don't want to offend anybody from Pittsburgh. The people in Pittsburgh were great. I dance battled somebody in a club. I don't even dance. It was amazing. It was a great time. I just remember the streets being a little sticky.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Well,
a little grimy.
maybe give it another chance.
I'll go back. I'll give it another chance. I'm
Yeah,
I'm willing.
I'm trying to go because I knew a handful of people who I went to high school with in Rochester, because it's just straight south from there, basically, who moved to Pittsburgh and love it.
And they
So
love
I don't
Pittsburgh.
know. Yeah. So I don't know.
Listen, I and
I'd like to check it out.
now here's the thing, and I'm not like a one issue visitor of Pittsburgh. When we went there, my wife was doing like pinup modeling. So she
Okay.
had like a pinup show that she was like a is it a pinup show? I think it was called a pinup show. It's kind of like a boudoir type vibe. And it was in a gay club and there was lots of transsexuals or whatever. So I've explored many parts of Pittsburgh. It's not like I just went to like the rap club, you know, I think it was called
Yeah.
like the Belvedere. It was a really nice club. But I've been to like different parts of it and I've experienced like different cultures within the city. So I feel like I've had a fair enough taste of the city um
Gotcha.
to confidently say I don't like it. It's kind of
That's fair.
grimy. The people are nice. In the gay club, the people were very nice to me. I did have to sit up against the wall because I was unsure of where I fit on their menu. I didn't realize it was a gay club at first. So this is kind of a funny story. My wife's doing the pinup thing. She's like, "We're going to this little club. It's going to be great, awesome." So we go in, and I'm looking at like a lot of the pamphlets and like the promotional like fucking flyers. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. Like promotional flyers for like upcoming shows and stuff. And then I
Yeah.
started realizing I'm like, all right, there's a lot of things that go on here that I'm not normally privy to. Right. So I'm like
Gotcha.
open minded. I'm going in there, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm also not confident enough in myself to think that these guys just can't handle themselves. Or maybe I'm overconfident in myself and I'm like, oh, these guys aren't going to be able to keep their hands off me. I better go sit in the corner in like a dark corner and hopefully not get hit on. But it was great, man. They fucking everybody
Yeah.
was super friendly there.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice, man. It was a cool
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Um,
good to experience things too like that that you aren't necessarily, that you wouldn't typically to typically put your like situations you wouldn't typically put yourself
yeah.
in, you
I saw
know?
you getting worried
That's
there. You weren't sure where this story was going. I saw you getting a
well,
little worried. You're like,
well,
oh fuck, where's this
I'm
guy
very
going with this?
I'm very pro live a lifestyle that you want to live.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I
No, me
just, you know.
so am I.
Yeah.
But people don't experience enough of outside their bubble, I think,
Oh, 100%.
right?
percent I
And
mean, that's I swear that's the reason I feel like growing up I um definitely didn't experience a lot outside of kind of my bubble.
mhm,
Um and as I've grown, I seek out situations where I'm with individuals that maybe I'm with groups of people that I don't have much experience with. And I think that that makes life so rich, just kind of experience seeing the world through through other people's
mhm.
eyes and things like that. But
How do you rate your ability to um associate with people? So whether they're like new client, right? Because when you
mhm,
take on a new client, especially when you're doing like what we're doing a lot of B2B, right? So it's like
mhm,
we're doing work for somebody's business. A lot of times you're not getting to know them on a super deep level until you start working with them. They
mhm,
hire you, have really good preliminary conversations, like the vision is clear, and then you start spending time with them, like building out this video project, actually filming it, and then you really start
yeah,
getting to know people on a more personal level, which
yeah,
is probably my favorite part of doing
yeah,
this kind of work. And I have found myself rubbing shoulders with a lot of people that on a day-to-day basis maybe I wouldn't ever associate with, not for any
yeah,
like any reasons out of malice, but just because like these are type of people that I hang out with. First of all, I don't hang out with anybody. I'm 41 years old. I stay in my house. All right. But
Yeah.
like, like you have your friend group. So you wind
Yeah.
up
For
associating
sure.
with the same people over and over again. But then I
For
go
sure.
out and I meet all these people, and then, from different political beliefs, different
Yeah.
you know, orientations, different lifestyles, different whatever, people who
Mhm.
would seemingly be the complete opposite of somebody I would normally hang out with. And you're finding yourself like really building meaningful relationships with these people. So like
100%.
what is your experience been with working with new clients, and then finding out like, oh wow, they think differently than I do or whatever, and then your ability to just like, put the like categorize those things as not as important as working together and having a meaningful relationship.
Yeah. I mean, for me, and I might be a little, I think I may be a little more like, well, I don't know. I'll just say kind of how I would think about it. Like for me, I pride myself in my ability to kind of like, I'm a very like empathetic person, so I pride myself in my ability to kind of see how someone else is like thinking about a situation. And so for me, the only thing that I won't do, there's certain situations where I have turned down projects and stuff because the person I think is just like very, very like, it's one thing to have a disagreement, but it's another thing if like they're actively like hateful toward certain groups of people, certain like, I mean, especially obviously in today's political climate and stuff, there's it's one thing if we disagree on fiscal policy, but it's another thing if people disagree that like transgender people exist. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so for things like that, I think like as like an ally to those to that group and to like LGBTQA plus group, I think that I have kind of a responsibility not to amplify the voices of people who are trying to like marginalize them further. But
So you're saying you've turned down clients or the chance to work with certain people because they don't align with your principles,
yes.
let's say.
So
Okay.
it's one thing to have different political views and things like that.
Hmm.
Like politics are one thing. Like if I don't agree with like if I don't agree with someone politically, then that's
Yeah.
totally fine. We'll still, as long as what they're doing isn't like actively harming
Hmm.
a group of people that I care about.
That
So
makes
that's kind
sense.
of like the line for me, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Which
No,
for
that.
me, I think sticking to those principles, at least in my opinion, and for my business and everyone, everyone has. I also, as much as I believe that, I also believe that everyone has the right to run their own business how they want and things like that.
Yeah.
Obviously,
So
um,
I generally or basically agree with everything you just said. I mean, the way I kind of go into these like communications and like, the beginning parts of these relationships, and it really goes for anybody, but just in the
yeah,
context of this type of business and being a business owner, um, I have a very good ability to be able to put like that kind of shit to the side. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So it's like, hey, this is somebody that clearly maybe politically we don't align on things, or they believe in stuff that I don't necessarily agree with. I
yeah,
have a pretty good ability to not give a shit about those things and like just
yeah,
completely remove them from the equation.
yeah,
But to your point, I agree with you that I've turned down potential clients because I felt like their values did not align with mine. And
yeah, and
at
that's
the end of the day, it's like, man, I've had offers, and this is kind of like a separate thing, but in the same vein, I've had offers to like shoot adult film.
yeah,
And I'm just like, no, I'm not interested in doing that. It was like, yeah, but you have a camera, like you have everything you need for it. It's like,
yeah,
yeah, but I'm trying to build a brand of like where I bring value, and I have values and I have morals, and that
yeah,
just doesn't align with what I'm trying to do and frankly who I am. So no, I'm good on that. And there's been other times where I've turned down potential clients very early on in the conversation
Yeah.
because red flags were put up there, and you have to heed warnings sometimes, because if you're
Hmm.
getting red flags super early in the discussion, by the time you start getting paid and there's money on the table and projects are like, it's going to be red flag city. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're going to be waving a white flag
And
trying to get out of the situation. And
the
now you,
deeper you're in, the harder it is to kind of
exactly.
like the more uncomfortable it is to back out, the
Yeah.
deeper you are in.
What I will say is, and I feel like you're in a very similar spot, a lot of your projects are storytelling, right? Like, so
Yes.
you go into somebody's situation and you capture them, and whatever their story is, you get it on camera, you
Mhm.
make it look good, you build that out.
Yep.
And because of that, you are kind of meeting a lot of different people. Now, if I can understand if you're staying in a specific area, there is like a specific or a majority demographic of people who are more likely to hire you. So maybe you're
Yeah.
meeting a lot of left leaning people or right leaning people or whatever the situation might be. But I have met so many people that are outside of
Yeah.
my normal sphere of influence. It's been amazing, and it has given me a stronger ability to, like you said, be empathetic and
Yeah.
not be so judgmental. Now,
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in bullying, so I know me and you aren't going to agree on this. I accept bullying for myself. I This is how I change. I get bullied. I don't like that. I make changes. It's not for
That's
everybody,
fair.
but it's an 80s thing, okay?
Yeah.
Um but no, my ability these days, after meeting so many different types of people, to be empathetic and be open-minded to just capture their story for them,
Yeah.
and just treat them like people, has gone way up. So I
Yeah.
would say that is a positive
Yeah.
influence that this industry has had on me. We
Yeah.
went down a
Yeah.
weird road there for a second, so
Oh, that's all right.
we don't have to
Yeah.
stay on the road, but
I I actually do want to add one more thing if that's
yeah,
cool.
yeah, please.
Um, but yeah, basically, and my whole thing with kind of what I said there is a lot of my because I've worked within the nonprofit space a whole lot. A lot of my clients are a lot of my clients and a lot of those stories that I tell tend to be people who don't necessarily get their stories told a lot.
Mhm.
And so I think that's why I I um I think that's why I've become a little bit more like I think about like the where kind of my morals and values come in a little bit more often because I think about like I also need to continue serving the people that
Mhm.
I have served in the past, if that makes sense. So it's like if some and I think about too that what we do gives people a voice and gives people a platform, and ultimately, especially if you're doing it within nonprofit or business, it makes them money.
Mhm.
And so for me, I feel um, I feel the pull to help tell the stories of people who don't necessarily have who don't or to help amplify people's voices who don't necessarily have a lot of opportunities to have their voice heard as much. So
Does
that's
does this raise a conflict within yourself with running a profitable business and trying to um, be of service to people? Like, what I mean is, do you find yourself maybe undercutting what you should charge somebody on a project because you do identify with, their story and what they're saying, and you want to be helpful and be of service, so you wind up making less money as a business in order to help them tell their story? Does this create any kind of like back and forth with you? Because I know it has for me at times, where
yeah,
I'm invested a little bit, maybe a little bit too much in wanting to be of service. I guess that's kind of like a stupid thing to say, because I don't think you can be too invested in being of service to your community and especially your clients. But
yeah,
I have made less money for sure, because some things I felt very compelled to, make it
yeah,
more affordable for them or
yeah,
whatever, because I did want them to tell their story. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely been times that I have, uh, definitely left some money on the table because I just really felt like this story needed to be told. But what's funny is those situations generally, even though this isn't the reason that I would do that, a lot of times those situations end up coming back full circle anyway through some other opportunity that someone else saw something or X, Y, and Z. And so, but on the other side of that, running, I thought this is where you were going with the question, actually, running a profitable, like running a for profit business, telling nonprofit stories and things like that. It's like, it feels like it's tough to be like, oh, but I have to charge for that, even though I'm trying to like help people make a difference. But how I kind of think about it is
Yeah, but
like,
they're
if I
not
don't,
poor. You know what I'm
no,
saying? They're just,
and
they're a
that's the thing
nonprofit, but they're
too.
not broke.
No, yeah,
They
and
usually
that's
have
the
plenty of money, and but also you have bills and a girlfriend and a house and like, you know.
yeah. I think about it in terms of like, well, if I don't charge enough, then I go out of business and I'm telling no one's stories. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? So
Yeah.
it's like you got to find that balance for sure.
Listen, when the plane is going down, you put your oxygen mask on first
Yeah,
before helping your child.
yeah.
Okay, that's what they tell you. I don't
Well,
do
because
that.
you
When
can,
the plane goes down, I put the oxygen mask on him and
yeah.
then I put it on myself.
You just got to do it faster, otherwise, because it does no one any good if you're
I, ho-
passed out in the corner.
I hold my breath. I'm confident I could put the
But
oxygen mask on very quickly
yeah, right.
in a plane spiraling to Earth.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's kind of I mean, it's it's just like anything. All this stuff is very complex,
Yeah. What
and
what do you think it is that when you do things either for free or pro bono or maybe super
mhm,
discounted because it is something that aligns with kind of your mission and your values, and what is it about those projects that wind up leading to you making more money with your business ultimately? Because I've witnessed this as well. I've done some like free one-off like little things that I thought were kind of like silly and stupid, and I
mhm.
wind up attracting somebody who winds up becoming like a 15, $20,000 client
Yep,
over a few months. And I'm like, okay, that was all because of this stupid little free 60-second video I did for this person with no agenda to make
yeah,
money off it or whatever. It just is it I don't know, what kind of belief systems you have as far as energy and the laws of
karma and things
attraction.
like that.
But is it like a law of attraction thing you think where it's like I put good energy out, I get good energy back type
I
of deal?
think, yeah, I mean, I think it's partially that, at least in my opinion. I think it's partially that kind of the, people, when you get a gut feeling about someone, it's 9 times out of 10 it ends up being right. And I feel like that's kind of that like subconscious, I don't know why or why someone, you feel a certain way about a situation or a person or the other way about a situation or a person. And I think that has to do with that's kind of the same thing here. Like, if you're doing this genuinely just to help, other people can kind of pick up
Mhm.
on what your actual motives are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also, I think at least for me, the other part of it is like, for example, last year I did a pretty big project for a local nonprofit who I just felt like I reached out to because I was like, they do a lot of things and their messaging got a little bit confusing because they do so many things. And I was like, video is a great way to help with this.
Mhm.
And so I just reached out and I was like, I just want to do this one just to like help you guys out. And I did that. And I was so excited to do that project for them because I knew how much of a difference it was going to make. And I knew how much it was going to help the organization that I was excited about it. So the work ended up being like some of the best work I had done to that point. And I got a bunch of other businesses and nonprofits called me after that because of that video. And I think part of it is, karma, law of attraction, whatever you want to call it. And I think part of it too is just like people can read like through the video on whether you care about it or not,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know?
No, that's a good point. There are a lot of video creators out there that don't do enough listening early on to figure
Hmm.
out what the actual vision is and what
Yeah.
the quote unquote brand is of the organization you're dealing with, and they
Yeah.
just go, "Yeah, I can make a cool video," and then just
Yeah.
slap some shit together. It is cool to get feedback where it's like, "Hey, it's we could tell that whoever did this for you
Hmm.
really really respected what you guys are and do as
Yeah.
an organization. We could see that just from the way this thing was put together. And
Yeah.
I've gotten some similar feedback to that. And that's probably the best feedback I've ever gotten.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That is just like it's the best thing when a client is like, that's us, you nailed it.
Yeah.
Like I got one of those recently. I was really nervous about this video. I was super happy with it. This was a client here, and this wasn't like a pro bono or anything. It was, you know, a paid gig. They reached out to me. Um, and I was like kind of nervous about these videos because I wasn't 100% sure like what direction they wanted to go. Like it was, I was super excited about the video, but I wasn't sure how they were going to feel about it
Mhm.
essentially. And the owner and founder of the organization emailed me back and said, "This is perfect. You nailed it."
Yeah. Why
That
were
was it.
you doubtful? Was it the
Um,
visual aspect of it or
no, this was some of the cleanest stuff that I had made to date. I think it was because they were another organization that does a lot of different things, and I had to cut out a lot of meat in the interviews. So I had like an hour and a half worth of interviews to cut down to. We did a couple like 3 minute videos. And so I had to cut obviously a lot of meat. And so I was like, I hope they're okay with what I cut. Like it was kind of like I kind of created the arc, even though it doesn't capture everything they do, it captured what me as an outsider, like what I would have wanted to see.
Mhm.
And so I was hoping that because they're so close to it, that they weren't going to be like, oh, well, you missed this and this and this and this and
Yeah.
this, you know, because I've had to have that conversation before of like, well, you know, you just listed 10 minutes worth of information and we need to make this 3 minutes.
Yeah. How often do
So,
you remind them, like during pre-production or even during the production process, that like, hey, I know we've been sitting here for 30 minutes
mhm,
talking to each other, but it's a 3-minute video. A
yep,
lot of this isn't making it in. And part of what you're entrusting me with is finding the pieces that
yeah,
will still tell the story and getting rid of all the filler stuff.
yeah,
You know, you said a lot of words. We don't need to use all the words. We need to
yep,
use some of them and then show what you're talking about, and that will
yeah.
bridge the gaps. You know.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, especially when I'm working with like the owner or, you know, the person who hired me for something, sometimes if I'm interviewing them for a video and they give like a really long-winded answer, just to kind of subtly remind them that like, hey, you know, this isn't a feature film. I'll ask it again and say, tell me that again in 3 sentences.
Yeah.
Just to kind of challenge them and also try to one, make it easier for me in the edit later on.
Yeah.
And then two, also it kind of subconsciously reminds them that like, you know, that we do have kind of a time limit for this video. So
Yeah.
let's get to the meat of it.
Be more
But
concise. Yeah.
yeah, and in my current, that was a bit ago anyway, but in my current process, I kind of in the pre-production try to kind of nail down a little bit more specifically what points we definitely want to hit.
Yeah. Do you discuss with new clients in like onboarding or like in your kickoff meeting, your creative sessions, expectations? Excuse me, I have like something in my eye here.
You're good.
I'm like, I just realized that like I'm on camera and I'm just like fucking like a cat with catnip over here. Um, do you discuss a lot of expectations early on, what you expect of them as your client and what, you know, figuring out what they expect from you? I found that to be super helpful in my onboarding process. And then I could always refer back to, hey, remember in our kickoff meeting when I said I expected like fast and final feedback, and then you told me what that meant to you.
Yeah.
And now it's been a month and I haven't been able to get any feedback. Like, remember that? Remember when we agreed to, you know, have set expectations and stick to them?
Yeah.
I've found that it's been super helpful. So how much of that are you doing?
Um, It kind of depends on the client, but I do a little bit of that. A lot of the stuff in terms of like feedback and everything, I have in like clauses on my contract that essentially say like I have a timeline in my contract, and if due to slow response times and things like that, if it goes beyond the timeline, um, at that point, essentially the contract allows me to charge them
Mhm.
for that additional time, which for me, I very, very, very rarely like actually put that into play, but it just kind of helps me give a little nudge of like, hey, remember that thing you signed? Like, And there's been a few times where we have gone like a month or two beyond, and then that also gives me the ability to say like, to put my foot down a little bit and say like, okay, let's do this one more revision, and we need to wrap this up by Friday. Otherwise, like, otherwise we're gonna have to, I'm gonna have to charge more.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, you're
and
technically already in breach of this clause, let's say, and let's just get it done. I don't have to
yeah,
charge you,
so
but let's just get it done. Yeah.
exactly. But it gives me the opportunity, or it gives me the ability to charge them more, because that's cutting into other projects and stuff, because now I'm probably working extra hours every
Yeah.
day trying to get their stuff done, because I've scheduled out based on us finishing that project at a certain time.
I think you're
So
looking at it all wrong. I think you need to look at it from your client's perspective of
yeah.
you're doing nothing but working on their project. There's nothing else in your life going on. So why
No,
isn't this done? And also, don't worry about me taking too long for feedback. Like,
I gotta say, I at the beginning of my career, I had a lot of clients like that. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's something in the water. It's the Poland Spring water up here or
oh
something.
yeah.
But main clients, almost every client I've had since moving here will like be like, "Oh, what's going on?" Like, "Oh, what other projects are you working on?" And like they're very conscious that like I'm working with other
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
which like that happened later on in my career in New York, but definitely at the beginning of my career in New York, it was like I'd get a call at like midnight on like a Saturday night and be like, "Hey, we need this edit by tomorrow." Actually, even though the contract said it's due in 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'd be
Yeah.
like, "I'm in bed."
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Working on it, boss.
Yeah,
Sure.
but at
Yeah.
that time though, I was just trying to like prove myself. So like, I actually just posted about this the other day. There was one client that like one time they texted me at like 1 a.m. on like a Friday night or Saturday night or something with an edit that they needed. And this was only like a year into my career, so I had no personal or professional boundaries. And I got out of bed to edit for them and was editing till 3:30 in the morning on the phone with them doing like live notes.
Oh, no way.
And then that same client, um, a few years later, uh, basically hired me to do a video edit, ended up not needing it, ghosted me for the full payment, and I have never heard from them since. I followed
Tho-
up. I followed up monthly for like 2.5 years.
Those people are dead to me.
Yeah.
There's
So
nobody lower in the world
yeah,
than the ghosters.
yeah. It's
I hate it.
yeah. It's only happened to me once, luckily, but I feel like every single person who works for themselves has had something like that happen at some point. I don't know if you have or not, but
Every day. No,
yeah.
not every day, but more than
You get
enough.
yeah,
Yeah. It's hard to tell because I shaved, but a lot of gray in the beard. All right. A lot of
yeah,
stress hairs. No, that is one of the most intolerable acts that anybody could perform,
yeah,
as a partner or a potential partner with my business is just not responding to stuff.
yeah,
If you say, "Hey, I need a little time to think about this, whatever," and I can't get you over whatever hump it is that you need to get over to make a decision,
mhm,
and then you say, "Hey, on Friday though, I'm calling you. Call me Friday 9 a.m." And then all of a sudden, 7 months later, you've called, you've texted, you've emailed, you've hit
yeah,
them up on Facebook. You see them; they're alive, they're still doing well,
yeah,
but they've never given you an answer. And it's like, hey, it doesn't matter. Yes or no. Just fucking
mhm,
say it so that way I can understand what it is about my offer or my service that does not no longer appeal to you,
yeah,
because maybe it's a way that I presented the offer or communicated it in a very poor way, or maybe it's just that the budget, you felt like it was too much,
mhm,
but you didn't know how to say it, even though I said,
yeah,
you're never going to offend me. Just
yeah.
tell me what's
Okay,
up and then we could figure it out, or we can't, but at least then we are on a respectful level of communication with each other.
yeah. So you're saying like after you send someone like a proposal or something like that, and then they just like you just never hear from them again?
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
even like I had a client last year, maybe it was last year, who I started a project with. The owner of the company was let's just say a little difficult to work with communication wise. It just was dragging. Second production day was supposed to happen. I broke my tailbone, like
Oh no.
legitimately broke it. I had to cancel, like postpone the production because it was like a day before I broke my, or a day after I broke my tailbone.
Yikes.
And whatever, like, so it just kept getting pushed back and pushed back. Then all of a sudden the
Hmm.
communication started drying up, wasn't getting a
Hmm.
response. And in those moments, right, much like in life and just people, when the communication breaks down, that's when, you know, your mind starts going a little bit. So I assumed at some point the owner or their end of it was like, hey, this guy Mike, he sucks, you know, like he's not delivering on what he said. Like they were probably
Yeah.
thinking very poorly of me, and here I am
Yeah.
in my side not communicating with them or getting communication back, thinking very poorly of them. And
Yeah.
then ultimately when I finally did talk to somebody, it was like, oh yeah, no, something happened, and like it has nothing to do with you. And it's just like, what the hell, just
Yeah.
communicate, you know.
Dude, everything is communication in everything in life, like relationships, business. Like, I'm an over communicator because I don't ever want like someone to think I'm like ignoring or ghosting them, to the point where like sometimes it's probably like I could probably stand to not communicate so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I
you're
totally
over
get
communicating right now.
it. Yeah, I know.
We got to end this. um, no, I think
Oh,
it's important, right? When the
yeah,
communication breaks down, you start
yeah,
assuming stuff that probably doesn't even exist, and then all of a sudden you
exactly.
have it out with somebody who you didn't. It didn't have to go that far. But I've
Yeah,
only had that happen to me once. I've had people ghost like proposals and stuff, which
yeah.
is why I try to never send a proposal. I just do it live. You know,
I
like
I've started doing that too because the same thing. I had like probably three ghost me in a row, and I was like, okay, like it definitely wasn't. It was probably either the way I presented it or the budget or whatever. But so yeah, I've started presenting it live now.
yeah,
So if they have an issue, I can figure out what it is, and it works.
yeah. Um, what is your biggest objection that you get when you pitch somebody some ideas?
Um, I mean, for me, usually it's just usually they're excited about the ideas, but typically for me it's just budget because I think a lot of people have experience with photographers, which photography is um, it's a total art form in and of itself, but there's just a lot less moving parts.
It's a lot
You know what I
easier. I'll
mean?
say it for you. It's a lot easier.
It's yeah, it's a lot less moving part, less option to have people. It doesn't have the audio and has less lighting typically, and
Yeah, yeah,
so a lot of people have experience with video
yeah.
or
You're
with
too nice of a
photo but
listen.
not
You're too
video.
nice of a guy, so I'm going to say
Yeah.
all the meaner
can you
shit. All right, I'll
can
just
you
fill it.
translate for
Yeah,
me?
I'll translate.
I've been told I'm very diplomatic.
You are very diplomatic. Yeah. And I love it because
um
I'm learning to be more diplomatic
yeah.
just as a part of this conversation.
Well,
So budget is usually the number one objection, as for me as well.
yeah. How do you,
Why do you think that is?
I think for me it depends. I think a lot of times I think the last year I was getting budget pushback a lot, and I think part of that was one, I was still trying to get the same or similar rates that I got in New York City, which is just a different economy in New York City versus Southern Maine. Um, and then I think also uh, what I find is that if I get any pushback on a first shoot, I typically don't get pushback from the same clients on the second shoot. So I think a large part of it, what I've been trying to do with my social media and everything, is show more behind the scenes
Mhm.
to show that like I'm not just showing up with a camera. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That I'm showing up with a whole, I'm creating a whole lighting. Um, I'm basically creating a whole mood with lights. I have multiple mics for audio, multiple cameras, like sometimes multiple crew members coming. So I think people don't understand totally what they're getting, which I think that's probably a messaging error on my part, which I've been trying to fix. What about you?
Yeah. I would say same thing. It usually just comes down to not talking about money early enough in the conversation. and
Yeah.
just being confident to just ask them, like, "Hey, what's your budget?" Usually, when like your number one answer there is like, "Well, I don't know how much video costs. I've never done
Yeah.
video, but I don't know what these things cost." It's like, listen, man. Like, I think the fear is I've done this with enough clients, and I've just
Hmm.
straight up asked them to whether like we go into an agreement or we don't. Um, but it's cool when we do finally go into an agreement, and then I can pick their brain on like the sales process or the early conversations. And I've
Yeah.
asked just straight up, like, well, what, is your fear that you're going to say a number and then I'm just going to get money bags in my eyes and just try to
Hit
freaking,
the top of that range and give
yeah,
you
yeah.
the same thing. Yeah.
Because I am. You're right. That's exactly what's going to happen. That's exactly. You tell me 10,000 when I was going to say four. We're making a $10,000 video, baby. No, I try to illustrate to them. Listen, I need to know what range we're in. I
Hmm.
tell them, I say, a lot of my videos wind up falling between five and $10,000. Right? These are for
Hmm.
like mission videos or even like a group of videos. Maybe it's like a couple client testimonials, and that will typically be in that $5,000 to $10,000 range.
Yeah.
I know technically for like good sales technique, you're supposed to anchor high. So
Hmm.
even though that might be the actual range, which it is, you would say something like, "Well, usually we do projects for $15,000 to $20,000. How's that sound to you?"
Yeah.
And they're gonna be like, "Whoa, that's absolutely bananas." And then you go, "Well, I mean, what are you thinking? More like 10?" Like
Yeah.
even though you know that you do this thing for 2 grand because you've been eating ramen for the last 2 weeks and you're broke, so you have
Yeah.
to convey confidence but not
Yeah.
desperation in a sales process. But I
Yeah.
try to explain to them that I just need to know what we're working with. Like
Yeah.
we don't have to max out anybody's budget, but if you tell me your budget is $1,000, when I know to produce what you want to do in any kind of form is usually going to be 4, 5, 6 grand,
Hmm.
where are we meeting in the middle? Because we could scale it down a little bit and make it more affordable, but I don't think I ever get this thing to $1,000.
Yeah.
And when I explained that early on, I think it kind of like they let their guard down and they're more into being open with what they actually have available. Because
Yeah.
it's not a matter of like, hey, what do you want to spend or what do you think this costs? It's, hey, you want to solve a problem, you want to get more qualified workers in your business and you want to do recruitment videos, great. I can help you with that. But like what have you allocated towards solving this problem?
Hmm.
And they know they got
Yeah.
20 grand laying around for advertising or whatever. They might
Yeah.
not want to spend 20, but they know
Yeah.
they have it, right? So
Yeah.
so I think just trying to be illustrate early on what the potential cost could be, but also like it kind of depends on what we're trying to do. So I need to
Yeah.
know what we're working with. I walk away from here building you out these crazy ideas that cost 10, 20, $50,000 and you're more of a $5,000 client. Well, I don't want to waste your time or my time. I would
Yep.
have developed $5,000 ideas for you, not
Yeah.
$50,000 ideas.
Yeah. See, that's the biggest change that I've made from last year to this year. And this year I've been seeing a higher percentage of like proposal conversions essentially. And that was the biggest thing is in our conversation. One, I love what you said about like trying to find out their budget because that's what I typically and I've started just straight up telling potential clients like the reason I'm asking this is not to try to, wring out everything you have. The reason I'm asking this is because there are different versions of this. There is a $5,000 version of this and there's a $50,000 version of this. And I can make either one and they're going to look slightly different. Um, they're going to look substantially different actually, but
Slightly. They're gonna look
and and the experience
$45,000 more different.
yeah, right. And the experience is going to be different. It's going to be more white glove if it's a $50,000
Oh, we have
video.
a craft table.
But
We're catering the
exactly.
shoot, and I've done that before.
But
Yeah,
for a $5,000 video, I'll bring a pack of waters and that'll probably be it. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Because we
yeah,
just
yeah.
don't have the budget for it.
No, dry
Um,
ramen. Everybody's chewing on dry ramen noodles. Not even gonna wet
and,
it.
but that's the thing is like, so I've started asking them that, and if they still are like, we have no idea what this will cost, I'll say, okay, well, if I were making this for myself, this is roughly where it would fall. You know, it would fall in the $7,500 to $12,000 range. And then I'll just pause just to kind of get their gut reaction. And I'll say, what do you think of that? Like, does that make sense? Does that sound right to you? Is it more than you're expecting, less than you're expecting? What are your thoughts? And then usually at that point, they're like, okay, yeah, we're thinking like middle of that range.
Yeah.
Now I know that, okay, we have like a $9,000 to $10,000 budget to work with. And then I can go home, make a proposal that they're likely going to say yes to,
Yeah. Now,
you
when you
know?
do your proposal, do you show them several other ideas or like different ways to go about it, different versions, and then also different budget ranges too, just
Yes.
to like gauge them? Like, hey, I know you said you were comfortable in that 7 to 10, and we got a couple of those options here, but I also made this really crazy $30,000 option that I know you said you can't afford and you don't want to spend, but it's pretty sweet. What
Yeah.
do you think? And you'd be surprised if you don't offer it, you're never going to get it. Right. So,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing is usually I'll do one that's like comfortably in the budget, one that just pushes it a little bit, and then one that's like my dream.
yeah.
Like if if you guys had all the budget in the world, this is ideally what I would do.
Yeah.
And so usually and a lot of times too it's just about letting them know like what else you can do. Cuz like people especially who aren't in this as deeply as we are every day in and day out, like they don't necessarily think about like what else is possible. Like, oh, with this video I could also do three other cuts that do this that could like really milk this shoot day or these, you know, shoot days to get you more material,
Mhm.
you know, or whatever the case may be. Or maybe we do photos as well, or, you
Yeah.
know,
So again, another case of education kind of means everything, right? So if you educate the person enough on what's available and what options exist out there that maybe they weren't thinking of, you just kind of open up their horizon to understanding what it's going to take to get what they want to achieve
yeah,
accomplished and what it's going to cost, right?
yep,
I tell everybody, like, listen, I'm not the cheapest guy in town.
yeah,
There's plenty of guys that you could pay $500 to. They're going to come out and make you a cool video.
yep,
I'm like, but there is a big difference between
yeah,
what they're doing and hopefully what I'm doing.
yep,
And that has been the feedback that I've gotten from people who have worked with multiple um, different video partners, that they said even like just the onboarding process, they were like, I had never been through something like that. Like
that's
we
awesome.
spent 20 minutes talking about expectations and, what our values are and what our mission is and all that shit before you ever asked anything of us. So it's
Yeah,
like, it's been cool to know and get some feedback that, okay, I am kind of giving more of a premium service. I just
hmm,
need to be able to replicate that consistently and always get better. That's kind of like my
yeah,
inner struggle, right?
yeah,
Is
yeah,
hit the bar and raise the bar a little bit each time, hopefully.
yeah. Have you I've been one thing that I've been like obsessed over this year is trying to put systems in place just to make things on my end feel less chaotic and make it more of a consistent experience for returning clients, especially.
Mhm.
Um, but do you have any like systems or anything that you're like, that's it, like I got
All
it?
right. You know who you're talking to? You're talking to Mr. Spreadsheets himself.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I noticed you even have like automatic emails that go out, like when we scheduled this, when
have you
we
ever heard of
initially,
Go High Level? You become an affiliate of
yeah.
mine if you if you're not currently. Yeah. So I this year was systems. That's what I told
Hmm.
myself I was going to do. Last year, as far as business goes, I had decent growth financially. I was very busy. I worked with a lot of clients that I really enjoyed working with. I felt
Hmm.
like I brought a lot of value, got some great testimonials and feedback. All of that was good. Keep raising the bar on that, but I've set a standard, so I need to meet the standard and beat the standard. That's kind of like the
Yeah,
inner battle there.
that's fair.
This year, I wanted to focus on building some systems. For better or for worse, it's been pretty slow for me at the beginning. Like Q1 of this year has been
Hmm.
much slower than it was last year for me. And
Gotcha.
that's been very scary, just being
Hmm.
completely transparent, absolutely terrified. But slow season is grow season. So I said to myself, if I'm not going to be busy on actual shoots, I need to start addressing some of these systems that I said that I was going to start implementing. So I've been on the fence about like doing something like Go High Level. I don't know how familiar you are with High Level, but it's
Mm-mm.
like basically an automation CRM. It's like everything that you really need all in one software. It is not that cheap in comparison to like all right, I have a Wix website, so I'm paying whatever I'm paying for that a month. I have
Yeah.
Calendly to book my things, I'm paying whatever for that a month. I have Zapier to do some automations. I have this, I have a CRM, I have an email thing. Cool. You
Mm-hmm.
wind up paying a bunch of money for all these subscriptions. Go High Level, and what's another one? Like HubSpot, I want to say is probably very
Mm-hmm.
similar. It just takes all of those elements and puts it into one piece of software for you.
Okay.
So that's what I've gotten into this year. And so even for something like the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you fill out the submission form, it creates a contact in my CRM. I then get your information, I start reviewing it.
Mm-hmm.
I state in my podcast submission forms, kind of like an a-hole, like, just not everybody's going to make the cut, right? I don't want to talk to everybody. I want to talk to people
Yeah.
who I want to talk to, right? Who I think are
Yeah.
interesting, that are different than me, have different mindset, different, whatever. I want to speak to those people.
Yeah.
So if I think you're boring, you're not going to make it into the approved column. But when I
Well,
move
I'm
you,
honored.
you are, the pleasure is mine, sir.
I'm honored to
Uh,
be here.
absolutely. So when I move you into that next column, it automatically sends you an email, updates your contact. So these are like parts of the systems that I started implementing.
Mm-hmm.
The tricky part is it is a whole nother world of trying to become at least not an expert, but proficient enough with this CRM and
Mm-hmm.
basically this whole automation software that it will take up your whole entire life,
Yeah.
just like getting good at this thing. So you have to battle this urge to like have systems in place, not really have anybody on your team to be able to do that. Like that's what they do, that's their specialty,
Mm-hmm.
because now it's taking away from what you do as a videographer and as a creative and the owner of your business. It's like this other fucking thing that you have to become an expert on. So you're a video guy. I like you said before, like people don't really understand what goes into a shoot.
Mm-hmm.
You're a video guy, you're an audio guy, you are a
Mm-hmm.
producer, you are a writer, you are and you're basically a marketer. You're like you literally you're the lighting guy, you're the gaff, the
Yeah.
grip, you're doing everything.
And the PA.
You're the PA, you're being mean to yourself, making you go get donuts for
Oh,
everybody.
I've never been as mean to a PA as I am to myself.
Yeah, exactly. It's really unfair.
Yeah, right.
But you're
I'm the
doing all these
worst.
things. Now you put these systems in place. Guess what? Now you're a systems guy too.
Yeah.
So it's just like
You're also
another
tech support.
your tech support. Now you really have to be tech support because
Yeah.
sometimes you didn't set the automation up right and it sends the wrong email and you have to
Yep.
figure this out. So it's been cool, and it can be helpful, but I'm in the phase now where it's learning and
Mm-hmm.
it's a slow process and
Yeah.
it's taking up a lot of fucking time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to build systems this year to automate as much as I can of like the repeatable mundane office type shit.
Mm-hmm. The
And
invoicing, all that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
and that way I can just focus on creating.
Yeah.
But without
Totally.
having anybody else in the business, that is almost impossible.
Yeah.
You could do it, but not at scale.
Yeah. I mean, that's the tough part. That's why, like, if like there was a couple years ago, I got really, really busy, and I started hiring some like assistant editors and things like that. Um, and it's crazy how much time that frees up. Like, it was amazing opening and editing, like the editor, and everything's organized and like synced. And but
Are you doing all the editing now?
yeah, I'm back to doing all the editing now.
Yeah.
So because I'm
You never learn. You never learn.
yeah. Well, I mean, for me, what it was I had to kind of when I was in New York, I didn't have great systems. I had a semblance of a system, but I was kind of just like I said, I never really anticipated this necessarily becoming like a big business or anything. I was just kind of freelancing to like try to make money in Brooklyn, and no one wanted to hire me.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, all right, I'll hire myself. So I would just get like freelance gigs, and eventually that kind of snowballed. So I was just kind of like doing things like I was building the ship, or I was building the plane as I was flying it, as they say.
Yeah.
And so then when I moved here, it's a different client base, because like in New York, I was working with a lot of musicians, a lot of Broadway people, um, uh, like nightlife kind of things. And then here, it's a lot more like nonprofits, local businesses, like food distribution,
Hmm.
like things like that. So the whatever systems I had in place, a lot of them I had to kind of like not totally throw out, but really, really change.
Hmm.
And so with this last year and a half, it's been all just kind of like trying to do all the things to try to rebuild those systems, so eventually I can get back there. Because
Yeah.
I had to kind of break down the business a little bit in order to build it back up in a different way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest bottleneck that we have is editing. And then the
Hmm.
other thing is just like the admin type stuff, sales,
Yeah.
outreach, like just
Yep.
outreach, takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Until you can get the business to where it just feeds itself, like one project feeds you right into the next one and it is
Hmm.
sustainable.
Yeah.
Um, then you have to constantly do outreach, right? And
Yeah.
last year I was having a lot of trouble letting go of editing because it's that creative ego that
Hmm.
nobody's going to be able to capture my vision like I'm some sort of
Yeah.
Spielberg. Bro, I'm a fucking high school dropout who, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm a loser, you know what I'm saying? Like to think that it's just a flawed thinking that there's
Yeah.
nobody who could do this like I do this. I had a realization at some point last year, really the year before, but I let go of it,
Hmm.
control of it mostly, and found an editor who edited similar to me and was good enough where I was like, okay, I can trust letting go of some of this.
Yeah.
That freed
And
up
that's
so much time
huge.
for me. It's humongous, but
Yeah.
the caveat being all this reclaimed new time, what are we doing with it? If we're
Yeah.
just sitting on the couch, then it's not really like reclaiming the time was not helpful. If I'm
Yeah.
using it to get more business, give more focus to my clients that I do have, great.
Yeah.
Bringing value into the business, awesome. But that was one of the biggest things, man, is letting go of editing. Just
Yeah.
and now I
And
hate editing.
really,
I
man,
used
do
to
you?
complain, or I used to say I loved it, and I think I was just lying to myself because I didn't want to
You're just
pay
trying
anybody.
to,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
It
now,
was an excuse not to have to hire someone to do it.
and you know what? I think after a few projects that I did not edit, I just kind of directed and advised on. I shot them, but then my editor did them,
Hmm.
um, and the clients loved them. I was like, okay,
You realize,
this is
okay, I'm
safe.
not going out of
Yeah,
business
yeah.
because
Like,
someone else
yeah,
edited.
this is
Like,
safe and it's sustainable.
yeah.
I'm paying my editor a good wage and he's
Hmm.
making a bunch of money and he enjoys editing. Great.
Yep.
Now I don't have to do it. You know what I'm
There you
saying? It's
go.
like I make a
Yep.
little less money, but I wind up potentially making more money because I could take more work on.
Hmm.
Um,
Exactly.
I could scale more without doing all
And
the editing.
and if you don't like editing, you can do more of the stuff that you do enjoy, whether it's filming, planning, selling,
Yeah.
whatever the pieces that you do enjoy are.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Um, what are your so I know you said you like working with a lot of like nonprofits.
Hmm.
Your ideal client right now, like what are you going for? Is it those nonprofits or story pieces?
Um, Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's just finding compelling stories to tell. That's my favorite thing, and not to say that only nonprofits can be that, because there's definitely a lot of really compelling stories that businesses, like the reason someone started a business, or the reason they run that business, or whatever the case. I just really I like peeling back to the human aspect of whatever the organization is. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's just kind of fun to like have that initial meeting, especially if you're gonna be interviewing like the owner or something, to have that initial meeting and like meeting and figure out kind of what makes them tick. Like I just kind of have a conversation similar to like the first time we ever talked. You just kind of shoot the shit and like
Yeah.
just see what comes up, and then once you kind of figure out, okay, this is what they really are into, this is what they hate, this is what kind of makes them tick, then you kind of start to ask more pointed questions. Um, so I just love telling the human side of stories. I just think humans, people are just really interesting, you
What
know.
industry do you find yourself working with mostly?
Um, lately I've been working, honestly, so this is the weird part. Since I moved to Maine, I've been working in more industries at the same time than I've ever worked in my whole career. So like when I was in New York, I was shooting like rock concerts. Um uh and then for a while like did touring and stuff with that. But then I was doing Broadway, and I was working in the book publishing industry for a little bit. That was like a day job I kind of had for a while. Um but right now I'm working with like just in the last, several months, I've worked with um nonprofit that helps people who like are in and out of housing to keep their housing, and to like uh to essentially try to build beyond that and thrive, and
Mhm.
get get things kind of back on track for them. I've worked with uh like a series of assisted living homes for veterans. I worked with a lobster distribution company. Um, I worked with like a local like tourist attraction amusement park thing. So it's like it's all these different types of industries, which I'm actually having a lot of fun kind of jumping around. So I haven't really, in Maine anyway, I haven't really nailed down one industry yet that I am working with a lot.
Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of people that I talk to in our industry, what we do, only really start finding success when they narrow it down, they niche down to like a specific
Yeah,
industry. I saw that with me. So anecdotally, that is accurate. But
yeah,
that's cool that you're like one day you might be doing something in real estate, next day you might be doing something with a nonprofit, next day you might be working with a plumber, next day you might be
yep,
yeah, and I've had definitely seasons where that was a lot of what I was seeing too.
yeah,
In 1 week, I could be doing real estate, shoot a wedding on the weekend, and then work with a construction company during the week.
yeah,
And, it's cool because when you punch a clock and you're just, like, working a production line, it's like you're just making your trinkets. Every
yep,
day, I know what I
same
gotta
thing.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's, I mean, I anticipate that I'll probably get more focused in at some point, but the first like year and a half I was in Maine, I was still working mostly in New York. I was just going down there like once a month to do shoots and then
Mhm.
come back here editing. So I've really only been working largely in Maine for the last like year and a half. So I'm still kind of at the beginning, that like interesting building point where I'm still kind of trying to make the connections here and things like that. So I feel like eventually it will get niche down. But
Your last, like, 5 or 10 clients, how have you been finding your clients?
so um for the most part, I actually started uh going to like networking events and things like that, held by like the Chamber of Commerce. We have a really active like few business organizations in the Portland area. And so I've just been going networking events, and I find that I tend to find clients the best when I can just like talk to them
Mhm.
face to face. I was trying to do cold outreach when I first moved here, and I got a lot of responses, but you kind of have to like, that has to be like double luck. Like you have to catch them at a good time, but also catch them at a time where like they haven't already spent all their marketing budget or allocated it all that year.
Yeah.
Um, so so at networking events, people are looking for people like us to help them market and things like that. And what kind of launched it, actually, I went to a marketing conference that was held just in downtown Portland, and I was like, great, I am going to go to an event full of people who hire people like me. So what's the chance that I'll probably meet a couple that need what I do?
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I'm in a BNI chapter here locally.
oh, how do you like that? Because I that's one of the few that I'm not a part of.
The
Um,
BNI overlords are going to hate me for saying this, but I will
Uh,
always be honest and true.
yeah.
I have a love-hate relationship with BNI. It, numbers wise, makes
Hmm.
absolute sense for me to do BNI until I die,
Really?
because I just made enough money through BNI directly that it makes sense for me to stay in it. It's like a decent chunk of my income
Okay.
every year. I love the people in my chapter for the most part. I love 99% of them. They're really good people. We build like really strong friendships and relationships. And if they hire me for something, like the thing with something like BNI is you're not necessarily selling to the people in your chapter. You're selling
Hmm.
to the people that they potentially know, right? So you're
Got
letting
it.
them know like,
Okay.
hey, for me, keep your eye out for a construction company that wants to tell their story, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Try to get people thinking about you, and they go, oh, you know what, I know a guy who's coming to do my backyard, and
Uh,
I'm going to ask him if he does video. And then basically it's just like they warm them up and give you the referral.
so you're all ambassadors on behalf of each other,
Exactly,
essentially.
yes. For
Okay.
that reason, that's where the love hate part comes in. It is a good amount of effort that you have to put in towards giving to these other people, giving them your time, sitting down and talking with them, getting to
Hmm.
know them, always like kind of keeping them top of mind. So when you're just going about your thing, when an opportunity comes up, you're like, oh, I know a mechanic,
Yep.
Jim, let me hook you up with Jim. And
Yeah.
then Jim gets to work and, whatever. And then hopefully through that process, the mantra is giver's gain, much like what we
Gotcha.
were talking about earlier, of just like
Yeah.
putting that energy out there. It's very much the
Hmm.
same way. It's like, hey, I'm going to try to get you a bunch of work because I like you. You do solid work. And if I know people who need what you do, I'm going to
Hmm.
push you, towards them so that way you can get the work instead of somebody else. And
Yeah.
then if you could send me some work, that'd be great. But it's not a
Yeah.
requisite, for me to give you prerequisite for me to give you some referrals. So it's been good, but it is like, every Friday morning I'm on a Zoom. Mine's virtual, so it's easier, but I'm on a Zoom
Gotcha.
call. I'm doing this thing, but my son is getting on the bus at that time. So it's like if my wife is working in the morning, then I have to make sure I get my kid on the bus. So like right in the
Yeah.
middle, I'm like transferring to the truck and
Yeah.
getting my kid on the
You're sitting
bus.
there like, yeah, guys.
Yeah, so a good referral for me. Hold on, I'm in the dark. Hold on, the garage door won't open.
Right.
And then my kid is always yelling something in the
Yeah.
background. It's like, come on, man. Come on, we're professionals here.
Man, get it
Yeah,
together.
get it together, man. He's yelling about some Pokemon stuff. But no,
Man,
it's been cool. So I've made
that's
a
good.
ton of money with BNI. I
Uh-huh.
know people. I had a business coach once who hated BNI, said it was
Yeah.
a waste of time. You just need to cold call people. It's a numbers game. And again, I don't like sales. So
I hate it too.
I like people enough to where I'd like to talk to them. Um, I do go through seasons where I don't like people, but that's more of just
Yeah.
my own issues, my own darkness creeping up, and then I have to
Yeah.
figure that out. But no, man, I love talking to people and figuring out who they are and what they have going on. And if I'm somebody that they can get value from, great. But I'm
Yeah.
not selling them.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. And that's where most of my sales have come from is like just chatting with people and then they start talking about something. I've straight up at some of these networking events, we've started talking about video and they've been like, oh yeah, we're thinking about doing X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, you shouldn't hire me for that. You should do that on a cell phone
Yeah.
yourself. Like
Yep.
that would get you a better ROI because it's gonna, you know, going into the marketing psychology and all that, people are gonna read it better because it's not going to be a professional video.
Yep.
And also, you're not going to have to pay me $5,000 to do it. You just have to take a half hour to make it, you know? But people are usually really surprised when I tell them that. And that right there builds trust because they know I'm not just going to like, I'm not just trying to wring people of money. You know what I mean? Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to make a video for someone unless I genuinely think it's going to help them. Um, so, but also when it comes to sales and all that, yeah, just having conversation, just like meeting the person, and then if it organically kind of turns into that, then that's great. But at
Yeah.
a networking event or a BNI event or something like that, people are in that headspace. So obviously it's easier to make a sale at a networking event than it is at, at
Yeah, I think at those kind of
the bar
event,
down the street.
yeah, like any in-person kind of like networking thing, if you have an ability to listen to somebody
Hmm.
without trying to sell them or even like interject, just let them talk about themselves, ask them about
Yeah.
them, like actually be interested in what they have going on. Um, yeah, that builds a lot of trust. And similarly, which is maybe why I like you so much, like I feel like we operate in a lot of similar ways. I
Hmm.
talk more people out of working with me than actually hiring me
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's like, hey, the thing you want to do, like you could pay me all this money to do it, but I don't think it's going to be that great of value to you. You could do that on your own, and I think it will be a value because you won't be spending all this money on it, and
Yeah.
whatever comes out of it will be net positive. And I do think that builds a lot of trust because you know they're not feeling like you're trying to just back them into a corner and you have a solution to all their problems. It's like sometimes I
Yeah.
don't, and
Yeah.
that's okay, you know.
Yeah. And I've even told people like that are recurring clients or whatever, they'll come and be like, "Hey, what do you think of this idea?" And I'll be like, "You should do that on your own and save that $5,000 for the next big project we do because then we can really do it." You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like it's all about like kind of that comes with the education kind of stuff too because you know, since we make videos for so many different clients, we kind of tend to see trends and what tends to work for people at certain times and things like that. So that's also additional like education that we can help clients with.
Absolutely. What has been the weirdest like situation on a production or with a client that you've had to contend with? You've ever had any weird shit happen? Even if it's like bad omens on a set, you know, like the light falls, knocks out the client, they land on a cat, they're allergic to cats, their whole face swells up. It could be a disaster. It's like Final Destination
Yeah, right.
on my production sets.
Man, I'm trying to think if I've ever had any like disaster things. Um Honestly, I've been pretty lucky. I haven't like had too many disaster things. I did have one thing that got me kind of nervous and it was a little ghost story type thing. But basically we were filming this a couple years ago. We were getting ready to film this like podcast kind of show for a client in this old building in the Upper West Side of New York City. And we were doing a camera test the night before like the actual we were going to be filming. I was traveling in. I had just moved to Maine and I was traveling in, so we were going to film like 6 episodes in one day. Like basically the host was just sitting there all day filming podcasts. And so we're doing a test the night before, and we were talking about this one haunted Broadway theater, and then this has never happened before. And I have two FX3s, and I've been filming with them for like the last 4 years or so. Um, we were filming, and right as we started talking about that, one of the FX3s just cut off, just turned off. Battery wasn't dead, like everything, like just turned off, would not record. I had to like try to turn it back on a few times, turned it back on, everything on the card was deleted.
What the hell?
And I was like, I don't know where I stand on the whole ghost thing, but that's the closest I've been to believing.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we were talking about this like it's this old Broadway theater, and essentially there's this woman up there who died in there back in the 20s or whatever, and
She
haunts the
hates
place.
podcasts.
And big anti-podcast person. She thinks live is the only way. But and then also we were in this old building that like Babe Ruth lived in when he played for the Yankees. Like it had this like big history of like a lot of old celebrities living there and stuff, and it's supposedly haunted as well. And yeah, so we were talking about that, and the camera like shut off, deleted everything, and then like just turned on fine, and it never happened again.
What the hell?
And so one, I was a little like it was a little ghost story kind of thing, but also two, I was like, shit, I'm about to record like 8 hours of podcast. I hope that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, yeah, that
So
better not happening.
I told the host, I said, no ghost stories tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you saged the area when you came in that next
Yeah,
morning.
I know, man. But yeah,
Uh,
so I don't know. I haven't had any like disaster things.
Well,
that I
that's
can
good.
think
Me
of.
either. Nothing
Yeah.
ever goes wrong on my sets. Everything is always perfect. Things go swimmingly.
Yeah.
It's always perfect in every way.
Well, beautiful,
Yeah.
man.
I have not ever had a poltergeist sabotage my production shoots. So you
Yeah.
have that one up on me for
Well,
sure. Yeah.
I'm hoping it's the only time it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. What else you got going on, man?
Um,
What else are you
well,
into?
I wanted to go back. I realized I don't think we ever answered the or talked about. Did we ever end up talking about the whether going to school
Yeah,
mattered?
we did. Yeah, we talked
Okay.
about it a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, because the only time that's ever come up for me is applying to one freelance job. For some reason, they wanted a college education, and it was the only reason they read my resume. But
Yeah. Did you
other
get
than
the
that, I've
job?
never been asked. Yes, I did. It was
Oh,
actually for a book publishing company. I worked there for like 9 months or so as kind of a permalance
yeah.
situation. It was really cool. I got to interview like Stephen King and Derek Jeter and all these
Oh,
other
nice.
people. So that was, and I was doing interviews day in and day out, which is why it's a large reason that I actually am decent at interviews now because I
Yeah.
was just interviewing people
What
all
is
day.
your least favorite part about what you do?
Um, is selling too much of a cop out?
Because we've talked about it in half of
Yeah.
this fucking
So
discussion.
selling is definitely the least favorite part. Uh, oh, so here's something it's gotten way better, and I'll tell you why. But schlepping all the gear, if I could just hire someone to just like get the gear to set for me and set it up, I would have no complaints ever.
Would you
And I
call this
think
person a PA by chance?
I would, but
And you would be
but
so
I
nice to them. I know you would be so
oh
nice to them. You treat them so
I
good.
would bring them a coffee.
Yes.
Um,
I give all my human mules coffees. Yeah.
but the thing is, with the tough part about PAs is that PAs usually are early in their career, so they're not like totally good with like setting up gear and things
Yeah.
like that. So it's like unless I hire a cam op or a grip or something like that to set things up, I can't really trust things to get set up perfectly
It makes
and how I want it.
yeah, and it makes a obviously it makes a huge difference whether somebody has any experience at all, whether they're just like there as an assistant helping you set stuff up.
Yeah.
If I have and I've had some guys working with me that they're interested, they have some gear, they're into it, they're not really pursuing it full time, but and they say that and they want to learn, and I
Hmm.
give everybody the benefit of the doubt there, but they just don't know anything, so you're still setting everything up and it's like a
Exactly.
class, which is
Yeah.
fine until you do that one too many times and you're like, hey, like 90% of the reason why I'm paying you so I don't have to set the lights up and then and
Yeah.
like know like, hey, just build the light stand and then I'll tell you where we're gonna put it. Like you don't have to figure out the creative vision here, but you
Yeah.
just put the stuff together for me so I could just get the client comfortable, get them, in the zone, and it makes a huge difference when somebody can at least do that.
It does.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot, what I found too is I really like finding like experienced photographers who are not, who are interested in video but don't have a lot of experience in video. They make the best like set assistants because they already know their way around a camera, they already know their way around general lighting and things like that. Um so they still are getting that benefit of learning, but you don't have to like hold their hand as much
yeah,
because they still have experience and they're more experienced talking to clients and things like that. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So if I leave the room for a second, I don't have to worry about like the PA saying, you know,
Just
things that
crazy
are
shit.
yeah, like because they're still there as your hire and they're
Representing the
representing
yeah,
you,
yeah.
so it's like I don't want them going off and I come back and the client's like,
Yeah.
this?
Like this guy's been
you know?
telling dick jokes the whole time you've been
Yeah,
gone. Like, all right, that was not normally how we
yeah, that,
get the clients comfortable here, but okay.
yeah, like, and then you have to go like because I've had a couple situations where I've made hires and then I afterward I've had the client like come to me and be like, hey, so and so like didn't
Yeah.
like they've had issues and those conversations I'm willing to have those apologies and things like that, but not trying to do that.
Yeah.
Trying to do that as little as often. So I try to really like vet the people I hire well. But with
Yeah.
the schlepping though,
Yeah.
I gotta say, starting my career in New York City is the reason I'm still tired of it. Like, try carrying like sandbags all up your arms while holding like a lighting kit. And like, I used to carry cash with me for like video shoots because I didn't have a car. So I would just like call an Uber Black, like order an Uber Black. And then I would just like give them like $30, $40 cash to just be like, hey, can you just sit here for 20 minutes while we load the car?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then like, because I originally tried to do that, just like asking them, and I had a couple people drive away from me, like be like, no, we're not doing this, and
Yeah.
just shut the door and like drive away.
Like, oh,
And so I
God,
started
dude.
just bringing cat in New York, especially
Yeah.
if you flash a few 20s, people let you do whatever.
You're speaking my language.
So
How's that George Washington sound to you,
I
sir?
I one time I gave a guy, I don't remember, I gave him like 40 or $50, and he helped us load the car.
Hey, 50
Which
bucks
was
is 50
super.
bucks, man.
I tipped him really well after the fact too,
Yeah.
because he was super nice.
Yeah.
But I got to say, the first time I was 6 years into my career before I ever did a shoot with a parking lot. And when I tell you that if you've never like filmed and like been like a solo videographer in a big city, and you've only done it in like suburbs, you do not know how well you have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yo,
Oh, you got a driveway to park in?
me buying an SUV, that's my favorite piece of gear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like, just it's crazy how much of a difference it makes.
That's crazy, man.
But yeah,
It's interesting being in this line of work. I fell ass backwards into doing this full time.
yeah,
Similar thing, COVID just kind of like changed courses for me for what I had going on at the time.
mhm,
And it's a blessing. It's absolutely terrifying sometimes, but other times, most times, it's just a blessing and a treat to be
yeah,
able to provide this service to people in my community and surrounding communities, and bring them value. And if they're a business, make them money or solve their problem for them or with them. And if it's a personal thing, like just capture moments for people.
yeah,
It's really, really cool. And it's how we met.
yeah,
I was just building a network. I had some things going on last year or whenever that happened.
yeah,
Maybe it was like at the end of the year before, but I was just like preparing for things to go in a certain direction with business, to where I
mhm,
needed to have guys up in Maine and Connecticut and whatever. None of those
yeah.
things went the way they were supposed to go.
That
So I've
happens.
literally used nobody in this list of like 20 videographers I have now.
Yeah,
Just a crazy network of really skilled people all throughout like the Northeast region of the country. And
yeah,
but it's cool, man. I met so many awesome people, you being one of
yeah,
them.
yeah.
And
And
now
now you got all those connections too for when that happens.
it will happen. It
Yeah,
will happen. Yeah.
exactly.
So let's end it there on a good note, man, because I
Yeah,
feel like I could talk to you for 5 hours, but
I know.
I do have
That's
a
why.
son I have to make sure is alive upstairs. And
Yeah, that's why I knew I had to try to get on this podcast, because I remember our original conversation was so fun.
yeah, it was just so funny.
So
Yeah, man. And I
yeah,
want to have you back on for sure.
for
Get some
sure.
updates on, what you got going on in life and business. And where can people find you if they get this far in the podcast?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so all my personal socials are at Nate Wind, and all of my work socials are at Wind Media Co. So
that's freaking
pretty
awesome, man.
easy to find. And then website is windmediaco.com.
Yeah, I
And
love it, man.
technically, if you type in natewind.com, it just redirects to Wind Media Co.
Okay.
So
All right. You're
I'm
whispering. You
branded
don't have to
across the
do
board.
this to do the whisper.
I don't.
They know.
Are you sure?
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure.
This is
Yeah.
ASMR.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, let me whisper in here. So yeah, we'll end it there.
Perfect.
Final words.
Wasn't prepared for this. Uh, just be kind to other people.